Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond in Germany. We're going to do our usual dive into the markets and see what's going on, as well as what's happening in the world of art with IP and the GoodFellas project and some new collaborations coming down the pike. So, Alex, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Well, it's good, man. I'm great. I'm great. At least as long as I do not look at the markets. I mean, all I see is red. I guess we've seen the market top. We all have to sell, at least if you believe what Twitter is telling us. It's crazy. People start panicking already. We saw Bitcoin going from 101 or 102 to 97. And it's very volatile right now. We see a lot of market action. We got the CPI data coming out on Wednesday. So leading up to this, we always see volatile markets. And yeah, as I said, I mean, it's crazy. I feel like we've spoken so much about market psychology, and it looks like people will never learn. It's crazy. I actually looked at 2021 January, and I saw that Bitcoin pumped to 40,000, then dumped to 30 before it, started going up to 60. And it's basically a 25% drop. So if you translate that to today's situation, we would see Bitcoin at 75. And, I mean, corrections are always there, will always be there. And, people will never be able to somehow cope with the situation. And I don't know. Have you sold already everything?
I haven't sold anything. Nothing. No intentions of selling yet, brother. We haven't even begun this run up. So, I mean, we can talk about Bitcoin hitting 100, which was a huge psychological gain, I think, more than anything. People have been talking about the 100K mark for a long, long time. But I mean, the upside on Bitcoin right now is still pretty big. Alts are going to follow. I saw Ethereum finally moved a little bit this past week, which was nice because I still hold a little bit of ETH. It's been funny to watch the XRP religious cult, buying and selling and getting excited about XRP going to $18 a token. And, in Solana, Solana's holding steady above 200, between 220 and 240, 250. It's been cycling. So, I mean, everything is good. Red candles, green candles, as long as the candles are moving up and down, that's a healthy market because people are trading ideas, and that's what we want to see. So if you just wrap your mind around the fact that nothing goes up in a straight line, and if you're in a position to buy and you're buying the dips, you're going to be fine. It's just the way it is. But you got to be patient, like you said. You're definitely going to win out more if you just sit back and wait.
Are you still in like investment mode, or are you still buying, or are you just enjoying the ride up?
I'm not actively buying anything right now unless I see a huge opportunity to develop, which I haven't. So I did all my buying in the bear market, man. And, now I'm just enjoying the fruits of that. So it's just, it's sit and wait mode really for me.
Yeah, it's funny. Today I saw that the Cardano, some of the Cardano accounts was compromised, and that guy who did that, he probably opened up a short position, and he wrote a tweet saying something like, I don't know, by the end of the year, the Cardano Foundation is going to burn every token, blah, 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 something like that. And I was like, dude, if you manage to compromise such an account, like the Cardano price didn't move at all, because, don't make it too obvious, don't pretend they're burning all the tokens. Doesn't make sense at all. So funny thing. But as you said, I think investing now is, I mean, have you seen a lot of mainstream media reporting about the 100K breakthrough? Because I actually read a lot of stuff about, hey, Bitcoin broke $100,000. Is it too late to invest? What should you do now? Blah, blah, blah. Have you seen a lot of that stuff as well?
I don't really follow the mainstream media, but the clips that I get on socials, whether it's X or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, the clips that I see it popping up there more and more, and I think a lot of that is just people sharing these clips because they have, they've bought Bitcoin or they've bought some token and they want to show you that how smart they are. Hey, look at me. I bought this one, it's 50,000 and look at it, it's 100, So, I mean, I don't really know what the concentration is in mainstream media. I know it's greater than it was because they always jump on whatever the most recent bandwagon is. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this conversation around what's doing well is ever going to change if you're looking at mainstream media and financial news networks.
But what do you think for someone joining the crypto markets today, like thinking about investing in altcoins? Do you feel like it's still a good opportunity? Because
No.
psychology wise, what usually happens is, people start investing now or in a month or at some point, and they usually get gains, they usually make profits, and then they see, oh man, this is working. And then they start like putting every dollar into these coins, and then at some point the shift happens and everything goes down again. So what would you recommend to someone who wants to invest now?
Well, what I would recommend is that you do a little bit of research and actually understand what you're buying and why you're buying it, not just following the crowd, which is, seems to be the order of the day. The time to buy, obviously, if we look back in time, which is easy to do when you're, 2 years on, but if you look back in time from basically right now to 2 years ago, that was the best time to buy. That's when FTX started to collapse. So let me just pull up this chart real quick. Let me go to CoinMarketCap. Let's just see what we can see if we look back in time, right? Okay, we look back in time. We go all right, 2022. Okay, the collapse basically in November, I think it was, of 2022, right? Yeah, I mean, that's the cycle low right there. So, I mean, you had, at least for Bitcoin, I'm sure it was similar for other tokens, but if you had the wherewithal to understand that all markets cycle, and that if you just look at the market cap of something like Bitcoin paired with adoption curves, in other words, more and more people seeing it as a use case, seeing it as a value proposition, then what you would have done is you would have bought every single Satoshi you could possibly afford. And you would have done it right then and there, right? And that's what people like Saylor were doing at this time, because you could get Bitcoin for under 20K. I think my lowest buys at Bitcoin in this cycle were somewhere in the low teens, if I remember correctly, like around 15, 16,000 US, obviously depending on what currency you're trading in. But for me, I just saw that as the opportunity, not today. Today there is opportunity, but again, your timeline needs to be 10 years if you're buying today, right? Because if I look at the cycle leading up to today, the previous peak in 2021 was Bitcoin, like you said, in the 50s, like 56,000, 60,000, whatever it was. I forget the total peak. But if you bought then, right, you're waiting 4 years, 5 years to get to where we are today to get a return. It doesn't mean you can't get a return, but it means that you've got to sit tight and do nothing for the next 4 or 5 years. So when Bitcoin peaked in 2021, in the fall of 2021, I mean, what I did was I literally bought it all the way down to the FTX scandal and then part of the way back up. And my last buy, just at Bitcoin, but I did this with other tokens too, was in the 60s. I think my last Bitcoin buy was like at 63 or something like that. So every position that I hold in Bitcoin from peak to trough to 60 is in the money, and that's what you want to create. So you're not going to do that right now. If you're buying something when it's making new all-time highs, your time horizon needs to be much, much, much longer.
Do you try to like, not now, but obviously like a year or two ago, do you try to educate people around yourself, like about crypto?
Anyone who asked me questions, yes. I didn't like randomly seek people out and say, hey, you should do this, you should do that. Because every time someone's done that for me and I've done it, I've always lost money. So I don't listen to people and I don't expect people to listen to me. But some things were inevitable. Like Bitcoin is inevitable It has been since its last run up, basically. When it survived the run up to the 60s, when it survived the FTX, COVID, all of that stuff, it basically showed you. And then again, with the conversion of the Microsoft Treasury, the onboarding of El Salvador as a reserve currency, or I'm sorry, as a useful currency in the economy, I should say. Like all of these things were converging at the same time. So it makes something like Bitcoin inevitable on some scale, because once it's being used, once it's part of a treasury, once it's part of a long-term strategy, you have people fighting for its existence, right? And as long as that's the case, the chance that you're going to do well with it if you buy right are increasingly good. So that's all I would try to convey to people who were interested. Like, hey, go do a little bit of research, understand this thing. And if anyone asked me a question, which I've gotten quite a few DMs in this cycle, especially about XRP, since XRP has been in the news, it's like, hey, yeah, I would buy this, or no, I wouldn't buy that, but I'm not telling you what to do, and I can't educate you. You've got to go figure it out. And that's kind of where I leave it.
Yeah, I get that. I actually I think I talked about that in one of the previous episodes, but like a year or a year and a half ago, my father actually I mean he knows that I do a lot with crypto, and he was like thinking about investing and asked me, and he was checking the coin market cap page, and he did that silly thing of checking what's the cheapest now,
Mm-hmm.
and he thought about investing 10 grand into Cardano. He even set up an account on Binance and on Coinbase, but in the end, Cardano was at 60 cents back then, and he set up the accounts, and it was too much of an effort for him to go through the verification. And after that, I mean, he downloaded the CoinMarketCap app, and Cardano dropped to 30 cents. And guess what? I had to, he told me about that every freaking day. He was like, "Oh, you see, my investment would have been down 50%." And I was like, "Yeah, why you could have bought more now? I mean, it's cheap." Now it went up, it pumped all the way up to 120. Do you think I've ever heard anything ever since? Not at all. Like he's not mentioning it again. And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I couldn't have asked him to educate himself on blockchain technology, because he obviously doesn't even know how his smartphone works.
Right.
But in the end, I felt like the people around me, if I'm so convinced of crypto, I feel like I can try to tell them what would be or could be a good idea. I mean, Bitcoin was always a good idea, but in the end, there's still so many people out there who kind of laughed at me when I spoke about Bitcoin. When they saw it go down all the way, they claimed it would be, I don't know, it would go down to zero at some point. It's
Mm-hmm.
worthless. It's just like internet money. And yeah, here we are. And I think a lot of people who are in this space are pretty happy right now. Do you think we will see a major move before the end of the year, or do you think we will have to wait for the inauguration and Q1?
I mean, all I can do is really look at, what's happened previously, over the span of previous years, and generally, around generally around the new year, you have a little bit of volatility because people are restructuring their portfolios. Sometimes they sell to buy something that they think is going to be, of higher quality to harvest tax losses. Sometimes they sell to lock in gains. It just depends on what that particular asset is doing. In crypto specifically, I mean, when we're talking about Bitcoin, when we're talking about altcoins, they're really two different markets. And I think the altcoins, for the most part, are just going to follow Bitcoin, which is kind of what's happening, or what has been happening, year over year in every cycle. Because Bitcoin is, being the granddaddy of them all, it sort of tells people there's interest there. But I think probably what's going to happen is you'll see people restructuring portfolios probably in the traditional markets more than the crypto markets, and maybe taking some profits to start buying some crypto assets in the new year. So I think the way that it's played out in the past is like November, December, that sort of transition has been like a good like high point, and then it sort of tapers off a bit to the first of the year, because again, you've got the end of the tax year and the start of a new one, and people are restructuring, and then the buying will start back again, in 2025. So, I'm not sure if that's going to play out this year. I mean, obviously past performance is not indicative of future performance, but that's kind of the cycle, that traditionally plays out. So we'll see what happens.
So you're not confident it happens again?
Not before the end of the year, no. Or do you mean like the cycle
So
itself?
the cycle, yeah. So that altcoins go up now.
I just think altcoins are going to do whatever Bitcoin does. Plus, they're more volatile. So if they go up, they generally go up higher than Bitcoin. If they go down, they generally go lower than Bitcoin in terms of percent gains and losses. So between now and the end of the year, I expect everything to kind of be pretty flat for the most part, to be honest with you, as people restructure.
But if you're confident that altcoins are going to be going to make like multiple X's, like why don't you like take your Bitcoin profits and put them all into altcoins now?
Because for me personally, I hold the majority of my like free cash flow or I should say not free cash flow. The majority of my free cash is held in Bitcoin. And so I don't want to jeopardize what I think a solid investment is for something that's of less quality, if that makes sense. I'm not willing to take that risk.
Yeah, get that. I mean, in the end, I read several threads about people comparing this cycle to previous cycles, and there's some differences, at least, like especially the one that Bitcoin hit its all-time high before the halving, which never happened before. So we can probably never be 100% confident about like what's going to happen. I don't know if you've read the tweets from Peter Schiff.
Yeah. Well, Peter's getting desperate, man.
Yeah, that guy who's basically telling us now that everything only goes up because of US politics and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's crazy. There's still people out there thinking this is going to zero. And yeah, I don't know what to tell him. I mean, he's probably comparable to the old Gary Gensler. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what to think, but I think we have bright times ahead. I think I'm not sure if anything moves before the end of the year. I think Q1 is probably the most important part of the cycle for the next year, to see which direction it takes. And I don't know, man. I mean, right now it seems like anything is possible. And I'm curious to see whether the whole crypto hype. I mean, we've spoken about it a lot, that the NFT market and the crypto markets are two different fields. Yeah, but what do you think needs to happen for the NFT market to have that big shift?
I think the NFT market is completely separate from the crypto market, to be honest with you, aside from the fact that the tokens, the NFTs themselves, are priced in a particular chain's token in most cases. And there's an inverse relationship there. So for example, if, like you were talking off mic, you asked me if I had sold my DGods, right? And because I told you I was going to look for an exit and sell them. And you saw that they pumped a bit and you were like, hey dude, are you gonna, have you sold any of these? And I said no. And the reason is I'm looking for like that inversion of price. So if Solana drops further, which is highly likely before the end of the year, then the price of DGods will go up in SOL, right? And the number of SOL it will take to purchase one will go up. So if I could sell one at like 20 SOL versus 14 SOL, I think you said it was today, whatever it is, then I'll just sit on that SOL and let the SOL ride up with Bitcoin on the next cycle, right? It makes more sense. And I don't need the cash, so I'm not worried about that. So I'm just going to sit back and wait. But I think what everyone needs to do in NFTs is stop thinking that NFTs are going to move like a crypto token. It's two entirely different things. And there's really no clear cut cycle of NFTs. We've had one blow up in NFTs ever, and that has never happened again. And we don't know when or if it's going to happen again. And I think the NFT communities for the most part are their own worst enemy in that they provide shit service and they provide shit product. And until they get to this place where service is a priority and product, like high quality product, is a priority, then you're only going to have this tight knit, close circle of buyers who consider themselves early adopters, participating. And as long as that's the case, the market can't expand. So right now, the gateway drug for NFTs is going to be getting people on board into the crypto market. And we've got Bitcoin now, which is 15, 16 years old, depending on, your start date. And we're just now getting mainstream adoption to Bitcoin, just now, right? So NFTs started in 2017-ish with like CryptoPunks, I believe. And so, what's 15 years from here? It's 2027, 30. So 2032 would be 15 years on. So let's consider NFTs to be probably at least 5 years, maybe 10 years behind crypto in terms of mainstream adoption. And in terms of use cases, it's like it's a million years behind, right? So until people understand like IP rights, until people understand provenance and royalty tracking and escape sort of the traditional database tracking of artwork use, whether it's a song or a video or a piece of art, and royalties on that, and the traditional space where an artist or a production company might get paid 6 months after usage. And all this stuff gets tracked in a database where they get a check every 3 to 6 months. Until people realize that crypto is instant and that you don't need to use those channels, and we start developing onboarding technology that allows people to easily access that, then I think crypto stays as sort of a fringe, NFTs stay as sort of a fringe interest while that matures. It's cool to have, NFT assets in games that you can buy and sell, but it's not necessary. It's not really a necessary thing. IP rights I see as a necessary usage. I see ultimately it can replace the current IP rights system and royalty tracking systems. But again, we're nowhere near, not even close to being anywhere near that. So we got a long way to go.
I mean, on Friday Spaces, we actually wanted to touch on the topic whether NFTs should have any utility beyond art. And we didn't really have a chance because we had a lot of speakers and everything. But I mean, in the end, if you talk about NFTs in general, they definitely have some sort of, or can have some sort of utility, whether it's like, proof of ownership, it's like, I don't know, representing digital or physical assets like real estate or something. But when we talk about the JPEG NFTs, like not the token himself, but like connected to JPEGs, do you feel like these need some sort of utility?
No, not really. I mean, the utility is subjective when you start incorporating artwork and code, because, at the end of the day, like I collect NFTs because I like collecting things. I collect comics, I collect action figures, I collect nice furniture, I collect music. I just enjoy collecting things. I've got, 2 Jeeps. I'm looking to buy another Jeep. I collect Jeeps. I collect motorcycles. Like I like these things, and I'm not going to stop buying them if, because the market on that particular thing shifts one way or the next. I just enjoy the act of collecting, and I want that to be a good experience. And finding beautiful things is fun. So for me, that's like a big part of the utility. Now, if I can buy the thing and own the thing, like in the case of artwork, if I can buy and have access to the IP rights, then that opens up a whole new span of possibilities where I can create products or logos or, merch of some sort using the thing that I now own, within reason or within the scope of the agreement. And then I have this added utility to the thing. But it still doesn't change the fact that I just buy this stuff because I enjoy the collecting aspect of it. Someone else might buy it because they want to build a bank of IP that they own and control, right? And ultimately, that's what GoodFellas is. It's a bank of IP that we own and control and can do different things with. But, outside of that, if I'm tying an NFT to a property, like in the case of Proppy, which is another NFT project, if I want to tokenize my address or tokenize a toy or tokenize a car, we can do all of these things, but it's not necessary, right? It's a nice way of using technology, but is it necessary? No. I think, would it be useful? Absolutely. And that's really, I think, what's going to draw more people in.
I remember when we were on Spaces, we had a lot of people from Stargaze on Spaces talking, and I wondered, because I feel like when you look on the Solana blockchain, you do have a couple of projects, even like in the top 10, who are actually trying to provide some utility. If you look at the Mad Lads, for example, with their wallet extension, or I think they have some sort of exchange. Famous Foxes have a pretty cool portfolio of tools that they provide.
Mm-hmm.
Claynosaurus, and we have some projects actually providing some sort of utility outside of just providing IP rights for their art. And I think on Stargaze it's completely different. I don't think you have a lot of projects or projects at all providing utility. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I wondered whether do you think can functionality or utility devalue the art aspect? Because I remember there was a project called, how was it called? It was some sort of casino project, and they still have these ugly bears as their art. And I see nobody rocking it as their PFP because it just does not look good. But they have that revenue share on their casino side. So people who hold these NFTs get some bucks every month or week or whatever. Yeah, do you think it kind of like takes away the art aspect when you have like when you try to sell utility?
It can, yeah. It doesn't have to, but it certainly can. If I'm a creator and I am looking to expand my user base, then I want to have as many sticky things, associated with my project as possible. So, if you're selling NFTs, the first thing people are going to see is the NFT, right? Like that's the first thing they see. So it's like, all right, well, is it attractive? Does it appeal to me? Well, I certainly wouldn't want to have an unappealing NFT. If my goal is to be sticky to as many people as possible, I want to have an appealing NFT that also has an appealing use case or an appealing utility, right? And in that way, I can be sticky to more people. So I don't think it's of any benefit to have ugly NFTs, even if they kick off cash flow. Now, someone might buy them, to pick up a few bucks here and there. But if you're looking at like Solana, for example, I'd much rather take the Solana tokens that I would blow on some, nappy looking piece of shit NFT, and I would just rather stake them and earn 7, 8, 9% in that particular Solana token than wait for someone else to go through the management system, to go through this and that and the other person, and hope that no one's going to screw me and rug me and then potentially give me a couple pennies at the end of the month. That doesn't make any sense. I can get returns on Solana tokens every 5 days or 7 days, whatever it is. And it's a solid 5 to 7% return. So what makes more sense to me is to avoid all the bullshit. And, because the truth is, like, if you buy an NFT, let's say you buy an NFT for 2 SOL. Well, right now that's about $480, somewhere, just call it between 450 and $500. Well, if you meant that, a week from now, it's going to be worth half that, maybe, or less. So you've already lost $200, $300, depending on how far down it goes. And now you're banking on making that money back on some sort of utility, disbursement scheme in a space where people aren't known for being good operators. That's just dumb as fuck. Like, only a moron would do that. So just take the 2 SOL and stake them for 6 or 7% and sit back and let all the stupid shit fall by the wayside, and then earn, those tokens in the coin that actually makes sense. That makes more sense to me. But that's just me. Like, after seeing enough of these things and schemes and these quote unquote teams and founders fail ridiculously horribly, it just makes more sense to me to avoid all that to begin with.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, in the end, it's definitely the better way to take the guaranteed return instead of betting on an anonymous founder who's claiming to build something. But what do you think? Like, how important is community for a project? I mean, we've seen it a couple of times already on big projects, especially. I mean, just go on X. How many posts do you see from DE gods making posts like, "Hey, do DE gods follow DE gods?" and stuff like that, and like just to become part of the community. Do you think it's important? Because on the other hand, on Stargaze, we've seen a drop from the drama queens doing pretty good, not even having any sort of community. Like they have no Discord, no Telegram, no nothing. Is it necessary?
No, I mean, you have to understand what people really mean when they say community is what they're really saying is we have a group of people who are basically promoting our stuff is really what it comes down to. And drama queens did have community. Yoya, who had been a part of Stargaze now for a couple of years, had built a reputation for doing, her style of art with all of the OG founders and participants on the Stargaze chain. So even though there was no like Discord following, so to speak, which Discord is completely useless from a standpoint of like promotion, to be quite honest with you, um, she was still able to leverage the relationships that she had to get promo. And so, like I was telling you off mic, like if you go to any of the Stargaze spaces right now, all they're talking about is drama queens, and that's just promo for her. And so the community, whether she has them inside a Discord or on a Twitter channel or whatever, is the number of people who are actively talking positively about what she's doing. So yeah, it can have an impact, and you don't need a whole lot of people to do that. I mean, Stargaze is a relatively small community, So same thing with DGods. DGods honestly is a pretty small community as well. There's a lot of people who want to be a part of it because they happen to drop at the right time on Solana and build an amazing following and floor price because they were one of the original people who could actually show up with some sort of a plan. And they appealed to all the degenerates out there, and that's who they built a team around. And basically, they've been able to leverage that with positive speech on X. But you can accomplish the same thing with $1,000 ad spend and have less difficulties and problems. So it's not a necessity. What it is it's marketing, and if you can use it properly, then you're going to have a good result in terms of people keeping your name in their mouth, so to speak.
But if you say, like, wouldn't it be the best way then if you try to, like, if you talk about, people who hold certain NFTs are basically promoting it on X, obviously, to get the best return on their investment. So wouldn't it be best to try to give as many people as possible a cheap entry into your project so they'll be shilling your project all around? I just need to say everything I say isn't necessarily my opinion here, right? I just want to take a different standpoint. So, yeah, don't you think that would be best then?
Again, it just depends on your strategy. I mean, if you have good engineering behind a low dollar or a free drop, then you can do great things. Just like if you had good engineering behind a high dollar drop, you can do great things. The question is, who do you want to go after? So for me, if we use Drama Queens, for example, I mean, she dropped her art 2,500 pieces for like, what was it, $3 or $4? I forget exactly. Pretty cheap. And, if you drop 2,500 pieces, let's just say for $5 for easy math. Let's say you drop 2,500 pieces at $5 a piece, and someone goes and buys 5 pieces. Right? They spend $25. They have 5 pieces now. Okay, great. Well, you could have had the same amount of money with much, much less headache if you did 500 pieces and charged $25 for one of them. So, you got to realize that like everyone who takes on your piece, whether or not it's low dollar or high dollar, isn't necessarily going to be a shill. A lot of times people are buying duplicates because they want to dump your piece later. They're banking on the fact that they can dump it later. And so if if that's your strategy, if you could create some sort of crystal ball and magic marketing system the guaranteed interest in what you're doing, and you brought people in at low dollar, and you could guarantee that the floor price was going to rise, then it would make sense to bring in as many low dollar buyers as possible. But because you can't guarantee that, the better thing to do for me is to have a smaller group of people who are committed to actually investing, because they're not going to turn around and want to dump your shit immediately. So, I mean, again, it depends on purpose. Like, my purpose is to build a bank of collectors, not a bank of traders. If your purpose is to build a bank of traders so that you have a business that operates on a 5% royalty, and you get $20, every couple days or whatever, then so be it. And I don't have any problems with either. It's just not personally what I would want to do. So, I mean, it just comes down to engineered purpose and what you want to create personally, I think.
Absolutely, man. I agree. I mean, I think that's probably the big difference between us and many other projects, that we actually care about who holds our pieces. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to see our pieces given away on X on some giveaways, or want to see our pieces trading for $5, or like people want to make a couple bucks on them and just buy them because of that. So in the end, I think that's why we stand out, is because we actually want to know everyone who holds it, want to have a good relationship to every single one, and yeah, want to see our pieces in good hands because we care for our art and for our IP. So yeah, that's it. And do you even look at the NFT markets in terms of new projects, like projects that come up and might have some good ideas, or do you don't care at all?
I definitely care about good ideas, but what I care about more is like good execution of good ideas, right? So, I mean, we could sit down and we could brainstorm 10 great ideas for NFTs, but if we don't execute on them, in a high quality way, what matters? So if I look at the NFT market right now, 90% or more of the artwork, in my opinion, is just garbage, and I would never want to own it. There are very few traits that I really have an affinity for, and there are very few artists that I think are doing a good job. So, from a sheer artwork standpoint, I think NFTs have failed miserably. And you can see this in most floor prices, because most floor prices are very, very, very low, and I mean, you can't argue with the result. Most of these projects have gone to near zero or zero very quickly within the span of a year or less. And that's just the reality. So we can argue back and forth on, the utility of NFTs. So my whole thing, and what you and I keep coming back to, is like, let's do the basics really, really, really well. So we've got some great artwork. We've got, a fantastic artist who's come on board to work with us specifically. We're also working with specific artists that we get to pick from other chains or other projects to drop specific pieces to our people. And so what we're doing right now is we're perfecting the product, which in this case is a beautiful visual. So we want the beautiful visual to exist. And then, riding on top of that or underneath that, however you word it, would be the guarantee of IP rights, so that if something ever happened to the project for whatever reason, the person who minted that piece still owns it and they can do something with it. So, I mean, that's kind of how I see it, from the 10,000 foot view.
But do you think, I mean, if you look at the top projects, and I mean, if you consider to have one of these, as I mean, if you look at X right now, I personally feel like, I mean, I'm not sure if it's just my timeline, but I feel like I see less people showing their NFTs. Like I haven't seen a Madlet in quite some time. I know back then when they dropped, there were tons of Madlets out there. Or let's take Solana Monkey Business, for example. That's obviously pixelated art. How do you like it, by the way?
Uh, I'm sorry, say that again. I couldn't quite make out the last part.
How do you like the Solana Monkey Business art?
It's okay. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of pixel art, to be honest with you. So it's not something that I really have an affinity toward. I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because honestly, I don't think I've ever bought pixel art intentionally. I may have been dropped some pixel
Yeah,
art, but
I get that, and I agree. But I feel like I sometimes see these images still on X, and I feel like, I mean, they have some sort of first mover advantage. Not first, but they have been pretty early. Do you think if they dropped today, they would still make it to some of these PFPs?
Mm, I don't know, man. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Probably not. I mean, if I mean, I feel like the space has somehow shifted a little bit to, the importance of the art has become a lot bigger, in my opinion. I feel like back then we had a lot of like probably even worse art. I feel like these days projects with bad art do not even succeed at all. Like, what was the last project? How do you like the Retardio art?
I'm not a fan of it personally.
Yeah, but can you understand if people like it?
Sure. I mean, well, I can see different people liking different artwork, for whatever their personal reasons are. I mean, I'm not trying to
Yeah,
grade.
but I mean in terms of showing it off as their PFP, because I've never ever seen someone rocking a famous Fox picture, for example,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I get what,
for for obvious reasons.
right. I mean, the famous Fox artwork is very cartoonish, so, and to be honest with you, their project is kind of related to what you were talking about earlier. It's like, well, maybe the art isn't the greatest artwork you've ever seen, but the project itself is really, really high quality code. Like their code is, I mean, in my opinion, second to none. It's very, very reliable. It's amazing, and it just works. So if you need something done on Solana, if you go to Famous Foxes, chances are you can get it done. So I think they're a classic example of what you're talking about earlier, where if the artwork isn't that great, does the utility help? I think in their case, it absolutely does.
Yeah, indeed. But I feel like it comes down to the question. I mean, especially for the future of the NFT space, when new people enter the space, will they come for the art? Like
Yeah, they
because I
will.
feel like with the big run of all these meme coins, we do not have, because back in the days we had NFT collections that just dropped, and everyone was just looking at the floor price, and it was just about the money. And I feel like if we have new people entering now these days, it will just be about the art. Like, it's the only thing that matters in the end.
In terms of, you know, project development, for me, the art is the first draw. Like if I like the artwork, that's the first hurdle. If someone wants my money, like the first hurdle they have to get me over is the artwork good? Because if they put time and energy into the artwork, then that tells me it's an indication that they're going to put, some time and energy into everything that comes next. It's not a guarantee, but it's just a hint that they might, right? And then if I get something on top of that, so much the better. But in the case of famous foxes, yeah, I mean, you may or may not see someone rocking a famous fox NFT if they're not part of the team. Um, but at the end of the day, they've been around long enough to develop a relationship with at least the Solana people that says, if you come to us, the code that we provide is going to work. And I can't say that's true of other projects who've done similar things, like Dandy's, for example. Sometimes their code works and sometimes it doesn't. And I've talked to the developer in DMs, and he's a great dude, and he's helped me solve some problems. But the truth is, their code isn't quite as up to par as what you'd find on Famous Foxes. It's newer. It's probably a smaller team. I don't really know all the ins and outs. And I hold some of their NFTs because I want to support the fact that they are doing good work and actually delivering on something. But with new people coming in, I mean, it's hard to say because it's going to depend on the avenue that they choose to enter on, right? If they're entering on this idea that I'm buying an NFT as a piece of stock in a company that is going to do something great, that's a very different mindset from someone who's saying, you know what, I really love the laser eyes trait and I want to find every NFT that I like with laser eyes trait and I want to own it. So it's two different
Mhm.
mindsets, I think.
Okay, so if I get it right, if you see a project that has a good purpose or some good ideas, but you just do not like the art, you're not going to buy it. On the other hand, if you see a project that is maybe abandoned, and but it's trading for 50 cents, and you love the art, would you buy it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I see something that I like, I'm going to grab it. It's just the way it is. And hopefully, something comes of that. But if I'm in collection mode or collector mode, I'm not keying in on what happens after the buy. I'm just happy that it's in my wallet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that attitude, definitely. I still feel like, obviously, when there is a team behind it trying to build something significant, it's still better. But yeah, you should join the Goodfellas, man. I can recommend. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, I should own more pieces. Yeah, for sure.
You should own more pieces, man. You should become a whale now. Like I said, I think, and I'm still happy that we chose the way we obviously decided on almost 2 years ago. And yeah, couldn't be happier, man. And I think we will attract a lot of people. I mean, you always say that, you always say the ones who survive the bear and who build through the bear market are going to benefit from it, once the attention comes back. But and also with Stargaze rising, I feel like Stargaze is very good for the NFT space, especially the people around. And I feel like art will play a central role in the future. And to be honest, I feel like we have the best art.
We have amazing art. We really do. It's one of those things where when people see it, they remember it. And it's going to take time for people to open up to what's possible with NFTs, because I think it's going to take time for the NFT market to mature. Like I said, it's way behind, like major, like crypto token chain type projects. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think the creative side ultimately will continue to bear fruit for people who really care. And it'll be like we've talked about before, people will consolidate and coalesce around projects that they know they can rely on and depend on, and that they know that, the team's actively seeking positive outcomes for everyone who's part of that particular project. So I think that's ultimately where that goes. And with Goodfellas, same thing. Like we've been here, like you said, for going on 2 years. It's been it started as a pretty crazy ride, and we've been able to create some normalcy around what we've been doing with some regular drops, bringing in some new people here and there and finding incredible collectors, SEC, Pierre, Bilo, all these different people, myself, and then working with artists, inside the artist incubator and making these connections. And when we talked about this on the Stargaze space, I think it was it Thursday or Friday? I can't remember which. And we talked about Stargaze sort of keeping its identity as a art chain. And I saw them drop, like that Unicordio crap. And I was like, oh, this is really not good. Like I would never, it actually made me question Stargaze. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And then you got the whole saga with the IP rights for mad scientists, happening behind the scenes. And then, all this drama that comes from, people not really understanding how IP rights work or how a project works, or, managing expectations. And so, I mean, you see it even there where there's sort of a stated purpose around the chain being for creatives. And, at the same time, while they have a bit of a stated purpose, it doesn't mean that, a bad element can't come in and sort of, throw a monkey wrench into the machine. So at the end of the day, if you can maintain your identity and be true to what your value system is, we talked about this on the space. That's really what's going to draw in your particular buyer, who's going to be your particular cup of tea, who's going to have your particular value system, who's going to promote your particular vision. And that's what Goodfellas has that no other Solana project really has, except for maybe one or two. And if we can maintain that over time, then we'll continue to draw in buyers and be good people and good stewards of their, trust and their IP. Then we'll continue to grow that, and it'll become something fantastic. And we just have to stay in the fight and make that a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just because you mentioned these unicorns a couple of times now. I was just trying to check them out because I haven't even heard of them. Um, but I just wanted to see how they look like as you keep promoting them.
Yeah,
Let's see. No, can't find them.
you're not missing
Yeah,
anything.
but you're right. Stargaze at some point was not really picky about what they release and what projects they let on their chain. I mean, I remember when we had our Sirens drop on there and going through their channels and seeing what other stuff was basically dropping there, I felt like, okay, looks like everyone can if he wants. So yeah, in the end, it's a matter of time. I think you mentioned it plenty of times that the money will flow into the projects that actually build and do something significant and look good in the end. But yeah, we will see about that. Let's dive a little bit into the Goodfellas because we announced on X and on Discord that we have quite some stuff coming up in December. And I announced that we will have another 21 drop. And I can actually, I mean, I'm announcing the artist tomorrow, so I can drop her name here as the podcast drops tomorrow as well. So we will have a drop from Jilly. How do you pronounce her second name? Like Rappaport or something?
Yeah, Rappaport.
Rappaport. That's actually a
Rappaport.
cool name.
It is a cool name, yeah.
Sounds a little bit like, she's from like Harry Potter or something, like a teacher, Miss Rappaport.
She might be.
Yeah, but she's very cool. We are not really sure where she is from, but we hope to have her on Spaces, obviously. And yeah, I mean, you guys can check out her X profile. You can get an idea of what she creates. She actually has two collections, I think. The Fame Ladies and is the other one named different?
I think it's Fame Society and Fame Ladies Society, if I remember correctly. I might have to double check that. But there are two different collections, and there are two different purposes. So one is a 404 collection, meaning that the NFT itself is represented also in tokens, the Fame token, I believe. So if you hold one of the, I think it's 888 Fame Ladies, then you can earn or attach them to 1 million Fame tokens. And you can in that way sort of tokenize or partially tokenize the NFT. So they're doing some interesting things over there, and they have a really, really cool art style. And so we're super stoked to bring her on. Like, this piece is so fucking amazing. I definitely can't wait to drop it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about it is that it is, again, completely different from what we've had so far. And yeah, Jilly is great. She is very communicative, and it's great working with her. She has been very reliable, which is pretty rare in this space. We've had very much luck with our artists so far. So yeah, it's great working with her. And as just like Jason said, we can't wait for your reaction to this piece. On top of that, we also have staking coming up. I see that we get tickets every now and then about staking, about people being unable to stake. And yeah, Jason, give us a little update.
Yeah, this again comes back to something that's so fucking simple. You know, like this idea that you should reward holders who are actively participating in your project in some way, shape, or form that allows them to, earn or earn pieces or earn some sort of monetary value or some sort of merch is just like the most basic, piece of tech ever. And Solana, ETH, like pick one, even like Stargaze staking is not even non-existent basically, and at least in the format that we want to do it in. And, this is one of those things where like the user experience is directly tied to the service provider. And if you look at most Solana projects, they will buy a staking site, like a proprietary staking site from a developer, and the developer will actually not give them the code. So the developer sits on the code, and now that project is beholden to that developer if something goes wrong. So they're screwed. If, like in the case of this Metaplex NFT resize thing that's going on right now, which has caused some problems for us with Floppy Labs. Right now we're beholden to Floppy Labs to fix this so we can unstake our tokens. And, we're in this holding pattern right now where the developer is basically more interested in doing an AI project. And so his partner's trying to push him. I'm trying to push him. We're trying to get him to fix this code that doesn't work. And, because we've staked with them, we're kind of tied to them. And so we have to wait for them to figure this out. So the better user experience will come when we actually have and own our own version of that code. And so what I've done, and what you've agreed should be done, is that we should take a portion of our treasury and actually hire out the code to be built custom and customized for us, but then also have it licensed to us so that the code doesn't belong to the developer only. It actually belongs to us as well, and we can go in and edit it as we see fit. And if there's ever a problem, we can access it and change it. We're not beholden to some anonymous developer on the interwebs who could give two shits if our project is successful or not. So this, again, is one of those things that people often overlook, where, this idea as simple as staking for a token or staking for some sort of reward, where the NFT doesn't need to leave your wallet and the user experience can be quite good if you allow it to be. And it just hasn't been that way in pretty much any Solana project that I've ever been a part of. For those projects where the staking works, a lot of times it's very slow or it's very clunky. You can tell that they cut corners on the servers and on the RPC calls and all this kind of stuff. So it's just better for us if we can provide a better user experience with, code that we own, code that we can edit, code that we can touch. And that's basically where that's at. Hopefully we can drop that soon. The developer's putting it on our servers as we're speaking. That's already begun over the weekend. The code was dropped into directories on our web server. There's a database being built out on our web server, and we'll deploy that into use as he finalizes our pieces. And everything that has, everything we've minted so far, I've already sent him hash lists for, and we've already tested. So whether it's OG GoodFellas all the way down through Soul Rockers, it's all there. It's all stakeable. And we can control the emissions rate. We can control, what pieces earn more or less based on rank, which was one of the things that we wanted to do for the family structure. And all of these things are things that have kind of been on hold because we've been beholden to a company that was basically treating us like garbage. And, this is something that for me is just completely unacceptable. And I'm going to continue to fight for our people and our community as much as I have to get what we want.
Yeah, man, I loved the sneak peeks I've seen so far. I mean, we've shared them on the socials from the staking pages, and I can't wait to be able to stake all my pieces and earn some gold. And yeah, on top of that, we wouldn't be the GoodFellas if we did not have some surprises up our sleeves for Christmas. So stay tuned for that as well. And I think we've managed to pack all the important information into 1 hour again, right?
I think so, man. I think we're good.
Perfect, man. So let's wrap it up here. You guys will see a lot from. I'll share a lot of stuff from Jilly to promote her drop on December 21. Do not forget that. This one goes to Charlie. I know you will forget it, so we'll set some alarms for you. And yeah, we should be good for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening again. We will be live on Spaces on Friday, and this should be it. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys. See you in the next one.